What's going on, everyone? Today, 59% of the S&P 500 closed up in the green today, and I hope you guys are as excited as we are about the stock market right now, because there is a lot going on and there is a whole lot of opportunity. Tesla dropped below the $1 trillion market cap level today. At the same time, consumer confidence had its largest drop since 2021. Nvidia reports earnings tomorrow. We have a bunch of stocks moving in some pretty explosive ways, and we have two big money trades today, both of which are over $3 million. So definitely make sure to stick with us all the way to the end of today's video. We have a lot of great stuff to cover, and Tom, we're not wasting any time. Let's get right to it.
Yeah, as you can tell here, there's been a lot of stocks dropping in the short term, and once again, the SPY and the NASDAQ dropped off again this morning as it looks like consumer confidence data is what actually hit the market this time, Mike, and consumer confidence data ended up coming out at 10 a.m. Eastern time today. It was the biggest drop since 2021, and a pretty bad sign for the overall economy, in my opinion, just to see a miss come in with that type of momentum. And I would say, Mike, that the market's reaction to this was pretty rough, right? In pre-market, the SPY was already actually dropping below the lows from yesterday, which was pretty insane to see. But once this news actually came out, we started to really see that pre-market break and continuation down towards that 590 support. So that was kind of the rundown on what happened today as the market opened, and kind of as that drop started to happen, what really caused that overall sell-off. But I think that right now, Mike, we're just seeing a lot of selling pressure hit the market, and traders are waiting for a reason to sell off, right? And I think that this news, obviously missing, was just a good reason to help fuel this selling pressure. And of course, Nvidia's earnings tomorrow are gonna be the next big thing everyone's watching.
Big time. And before we venture into that, because that is a whole unit by itself, we have to talk a little bit more about some of this price action we're seeing right now. And as you mentioned, Tom, we are seeing a significant drop in consumer sentiment, and part of that has to do with, of course, all the tariff fears. But at the end of the day, we're also just seeing consumers quite literally become more pessimistic about future business conditions. And I think that is even, able to be clearly seen just by looking at some of this investor sentiment in the short term as we look at SPY or most other stocks right now. There's definitely a lot of pessimism rising, and it's something definitely worth noting, especially heading into tomorrow's big event, which is Nvidia's earnings release. A lot of people are on the edge of their seats right now. Nvidia is set to report earnings after the bell tomorrow, and here's the thing. They are expecting a 63% increase in their earnings per share and a 73% increase in their revenue compared to the same period last year. While that sounds amazing, we have to remember we are talking about Nvidia. Last year, their earnings had an EPS increase of 486% and a revenue increase of 265%. So with a situation like this, if we do not see these earnings truly come in at a level that is enough to just wow investors, we can have a situation where the stock can report good earnings, but we could see some negative PA.
Yeah, we definitely can, and Nvidia's seen a lot of negative PA in the short term anyways. We've been seeing a lot of negative comments from chip restrictions, even in the short term. I just saw a headline just last night that looked like Trump was talking about doing further export rules on the chip sector, which is a pretty negative thing to hear. And of course, we have DeepSeek doing a lot of competition with just AI companies in general from the United States. So of course, that factors in with Nvidia as well, and that increased competition just is not good. And of course, Nvidia was for a while thought to be like the big dog that nobody could touch, and now we're seeing Chinese companies make things that they might not be exactly Nvidia related, but just cost cutting has been insane. And overall, I think that that's really hurt some of the confidence, and we have seen a lot of negative PA stemming from that. And maybe Jensen Huang will address some of this stuff tomorrow. So definitely be ready for the earnings report. It will be coming out after the market closes, and we will be covering a lot of the numbers and everything like that. So definitely tune into tomorrow night's video as well.
Yeah, and as we've been saying, we've been seeing some pretty big moves out of multiple different stocks related to earnings, not only this earnings season, but even this week. I know HIMS had a giant move, TEM, the Nancy Pelosi special, and a handful of other stocks. So we should see a pretty big move here out of Nvidia. Let's not forget that Nvidia is the second heaviest weighted company in the entire S&P 500. So how Nvidia moves will not only directly impact the S&P 500, but it will also have a very large impact on just investor sentiment in general. So be on the lookout for this. How Nvidia moves will be extremely important. And a lot of times there are better opportunities playing the move after the report rather than just gambling on what might happen beforehand.
That's a really good point, Mike. You don't always have to gamble beforehand, even though it might be the sexy thing to do. The sexy thing to do isn't always the best thing for your account. And some of these safer investors like Warren Buffett and some other people like that might be good testaments to that, but definitely have your eyes on NVIDIA's earnings. And Mike, like you mentioned, there's been a lot of other big earnings in the short term, like HIMS and Tempest, which reported yesterday. And I was looking at some of those moves again today, and like HIMS ended up moving down, and Nancy Pelosi stock Tempest was not the best either, closing down 15% on the day. And with the earnings for tomorrow, besides Nvidia, of course, we do have Snowflake, AI, and CRM and after hours, which have had a lot of good popularity and short-term price action. Even Mara in the Bitcoin sector will be pretty interesting.
There we go. So yeah, we definitely have a loaded earnings lineup, but Tom, we also have some pretty crazy price action going on right now with Tessie. So this one fell by over 8% on the day, and it has been a rough past couple months with this one, as it is down nearly 40% from its all-time high. What is going on here?
Yeah, this is not the best headline to see today for Tesla, so be aware. But with Tesla here, their Europe sales ended up tanking, which was pretty rough. And Mike, it's not the best either, because the sales didn't only tank, they tanked down 45%. A year ago, they had they're saying that the amount of Tesla EVs registered in Europe was 18,161, and at this point this year they had 9,945. So that is quite the drop. 45% is never good to see. And I think the scariest part about this is that overall EV sales actually jumped 37.3% as well within that time in Europe. So not good, Mike, whenever you're losing sales, but the other companies are gaining. And of course, Tesla shares were down quite a bit today off this, down 9%. And there was also some negative news with some updates and with their autopilot in China.
Yeah, so just yesterday, news came out where Tesla released a long-awaited autopilot update in China, and basically it left owners disappointed. That just adds to the negative sentiment. On top of that, Elon has been pretty vocal with a lot of political stuff lately, which just adds to the sentiment and tension. So either way, there is a lot of selling pressure going on with Tesla right now. There are scalp opportunities riding this strong trend in both directions. And of course, if you are a long-term fan of Tesla, then maybe it'll eventually get to a point that you'd be comfortable happily buying at. But either way, Tesla is moving in a pretty momentum-filled way right now, and it's certainly worth keeping on the radar. But Tom, we also have to cover SMCI, because everyone has been watching this one lately, as this company has been a dumpster fire over the past year, and today was the deadline for their 10K filing, and they delivered. Very late, but they delivered. We can see their stock is popping in after hours, and the momentum is back, at least for now. What's going on here?
Oh my gosh, they finally got it done. I was starting to worry that they weren't going to hit the deadline, which was 5:30 p.m. Eastern time, but screw the deadline, Mike. They got it done. It came out. Here it is on the SEC's website. You guys can scroll through it and read it. I'm sure that we're going to see a whole bunch of updates and stuff about this 10K over the next day, but keep your eyes on SMCIs. It's starting to pop up in after hours, up to around $54. And Mike, this stock has been blasting off in the short term in anticipation of this filing, but over the past couple days, it started to really pull back with the overall market and a few of these growth stocks. So it's good to see it kind of getting the momentum back from this news, and hopefully the bulls can keep it hitting on this one, because it's been a pretty fun one on the way up in anticipation of this and following their earnings. So hopefully we can get that trend going again.
Exactly. So to provide some backstory, basically SMCI has been extremely delayed in filing a necessary annual report, which is this 10K filing. They are beyond late, and they were basically given a deadline to file this report by today or face a delisting. And this gives them at least some more time before getting delisted. But it definitely has some attention and hype and momentum to it. And as we can see just by looking at the recent price action, this stock moves in an extremely strong way, and there are short-term trend following opportunities associated with a stock like this one. So definitely keep it close on watch. But Tom, heading into the SPY right now, today was definitely another relatively bearish day. What are the key levels and analysis heading into tomorrow?
Yeah, the SPY really broke below the low from yesterday today and ended up playing out really well down below 596, then even 595, which was a pretty big level that I have been watching for in the short term. And I know that we've even been talking about a major support at 590, and the SPY got really close and tested that today and actually bounced right off of it and held it in a pretty strong way. So in the short term, you have to have your eyes on this 590 support. We're seeing really good bounces and a price action coming off of this. But even as far as resistance, though, I really do like these previous levels that were broken below, like 595, 598, and especially $600. $600 even is going to be a major resistance now. If we see SPY rip back above that, I will start to maybe become a little bit more bullish in the short term. But I'm definitely going to be watching for possible hits and rejections here. Now, I will say this, the SPY has been moving down a lot. Don't expect it to fall every day. There probably will be some point that resistances are tested, but hey, I'll keep enjoying this directional action, Mike, because there's been a lot of opportunities, especially with stocks like UVXY.
There we go, and shout out to you, Tom. These levels have been extremely useful for intraday trading, and they're definitely worth watching, not only for tomorrow, but throughout the rest of the week. So shout out to you, and keep on rolling. But we also have a pretty interesting dynamic happening in the market right now, where we are seeing more and more stocks, not only in the S&P 500, but just the broader market as a whole, you can say, weakening. As we can see by looking at this chart here, we can see the percentage of S&P 500, S&P 400, and S&P 600 stocks hitting 1 month lows is pretty rapidly increasing. So this is just another thing worth keeping on the radar, because sentiment is not looking the best right now.
It's really not, Mike. This is really negative to see, in my opinion, in the short term. And we have seen different periods where this has happened, where these end up flying up in the short term. And a lot of times, as they start to trend, they start to peak out in a pretty crazy way. So I'm definitely going to be watching for more possible bearishness. It kind of sucks to see in the short term, but hey, sometimes that's just what happens in the stock market. And, it's definitely something that needs to be talked about and looked at as well. But Mike, there's definitely a lot still on the economic calendar for this week as well, with the GDP growth rate and durable goods data Thursday, 1 hour before the market opens, and even more importantly, the Federal Reserve's preferred inflation gauge, the PCE data there on Friday.
All right, there we go, and it's definitely an exciting week to be a trader, but let's get to some setups and predictions. A stock that is definitely close on watch right now is HIMS, and of course, with a stock as volatile as this one, you have to be willing to trade it in both directions, but I'm definitely looking at it for a potential bounce here. This stock has been destroyed over the past week, as it went from all-time highs of like $73 a share all the way down to lows of like $36 $6 per share. This is a 50% drop in just a few trading days. And I think it's at that point right now where, it's definitely a bit overextended to the downside. And we already started to see some buying pressure come into the stock, especially in the second half of the trading day. So with that being said, it is on my radar for a potential bullish leaning trade for tomorrow. If this stock can put some meaningful pressure on its intraday highs, I like the reward to risk playing it in like a bullish way or just like to the upside. Again, this stock is extremely volatile, so if we do see it trend strongly in the other direction, you can't just marry the bull side or the bear side. You have to adapt with the PA as it unfolds.
Yeah, it's definitely been falling off a lot in the short term, Mike. It's a pretty crazy stock as well, and I would think that with a lot of these stocks that are dropping, they might start to find some short term supports, and that's actually what I'm looking at with my next stock here, which is Palantir, ticker symbol PLTR. I've been watching a key support coming up on this one around $85, where we've seen a couple of key hits. This was actually previous resistance on Palantir, where it failed to break all-time highs a couple of times, and then once it ripped above there, it didn't just rip, it gapped up by like 10 or 20% up to $100 plus. So there's a pretty good move that happened at the last time Palantir was at this level, and I'm actually watching for it to get bought up off of this dip. And if we go over to the Bookmap, you can see that 85 is a massive stack of buyers as well, with 465,000 shares stacked up here. Everybody keeps asking me in the short term, Tom, when is a good time to buy Palantir? I'm not saying that this is the time to buy it for the long term and this is going to be the perfect long-term price, but as far as a short-term support, like snipe/bounce type of play, I'm definitely looking at that in the short term. Now, if we do see this massive buy wall just give out, then we have to adapt and keep following the market down.
Alrighty, sounds good there, and that $85 level is key, so keep it close on watch. But another stock that is definitely on the radar is UVXY in a bullish way. UVXY does very well when panic increases in the market and as prices fall in general. We've covered this ticker a handful of times in recent videos, and it had a decent day today. Nothing too crazy on a close over close basis, but it had a phenomenal run up towards open as the market was panicking. This setup is only a potential setup if we continue to see the market behave in a relatively weak and bearish way. The more pressure the market puts on its lows or close to that area, the more panic selling that we see in general, and the better it is for UVXY. So UVXY is definitely on the radar, but I want to see panic in the market in order to justify a setup with this one.
Yeah, and I know it doesn't seem like on a close over close basis that it's like moving that much. Like it closes up 0.87%, but like you said, while the market panicked there at open, it ran up like 7% again, just like it did yesterday. And if the SPY ends up running down again tomorrow morning, definitely have your eyes on UVXY. It can be pretty advantageous. With my next setup, I'm looking at Microsoft in the short term, and Microsoft is sitting at $400 a share, and it actually just broke below there today. If I continue to see Microsoft hold under 400, I'm going to keep watching it down in the short term. If we go to Microsoft on a daily chart, you can tell that it's starting to really break below some pretty key supports that were right around at this $400 mark. So overall, Mike, I think this is a pretty brutal breakdown starting to happen, and I will be watching for a test to around the next recent low around 390, which would be like a nice $10 drop to the bottom of the next range. But definitely pretty brutal price action. What we're seeing out of these bigger tech stocks, and Microsoft is one that cannot hide from the selling in the short term.
All right, there we go. And I will also keep this one close on watch. But besides that, Tom, it's now about that time for today's momentum plays. And with the first one, we have Tesla to the downside.
Poor Tessie, they're sitting just under $300 a share. Well, I guess they got under 300 today. If they move under 297 tomorrow, then keep watching them down.
All right, with the next one, we have RKLB also to the downside.
Rocket Lab, if they end up breaking under $19.80, watch them down as well.
Alrighty, and then with the last one, we have BABA to the upside.
Yeah, the China stocks were kind of surprising me today. Even from this little dip buy opportunity intraday, I liked how they closed around highs as well. If BABA can break out above 135, then watch them back up.
Sounds good. So we have BABA, RKLB, and Tesla all on watch for potential continuations tomorrow. If and only if they break through the levels listed, the stronger and more consistent these stocks move, the better the setups become. Do not even think about trading these unless you have stop losses. Stop losses are required for any trade you ever take for multiple reasons. That is especially true for volatile, short-term, trend-following setups like these ones. So either way, keep them close on watch. But Tom, we also have two $3 million big money plays today. So let's definitely dive into those. And these ones are pretty exciting too. With the first one, we have a $3,030,000 trade with Intel. And the big money bought the 23 strike call options that expire on October 17th of 2025. Intel's been doing pretty well in the short term off of a couple different headlines. The first was basically where JD Vance spoke pretty positively about American AI and chips and manufacturing and all that good stuff. And the second was how Taiwan Semiconductor and Broadcom both expressed interest in potentially buying parts of Intel. We could see over the past few trading days, Intel has sold off a bit, but the big money is happily buying this dip.
They really are. This is a pretty big support that Intel's been bouncing off of too. We've talked about this stock quite a bit in the short term, Mike, as it's had a lot of popularity with some of those headlines with Vance and even like Broadcom and TSM. So definitely a stock that's had a lot of good news, and a lot of traders have been a little bit skeptical this week as it's been pulling back. The overall market's been taking a pretty big hit in the short term as well. So I'm not really too like overly upset with this pullback. And on the overall move higher, there's gonna be pullbacks as this support holds up. But as long as we keep holding this like $18.50 and $19 support, I like the longer term outlook with this. And this is a longer term big money play expiring out in October. So just make sure to be ready to give it the time it needs. It might bounce around a little bit more down here before truly getting this breakout back to like $30 plus.
All right, sounds good there, and it's definitely one worth keeping on the radar. But with the next one, we actually have a $3.44 million big money trade with ticker symbol PLUG. They bought the $1.50 strike call options that expire on January 16th of 2026. This is a much higher risk, higher reward trade. Plug is a hydrogen fuel cell company that has been extremely volatile over the past few years, and it is at lows not tested since 2019, and it looks like the big money's getting pretty bullish here as well. Looking at this setup, the stock is, very volatile, as we can see. It has highs of nearly $80 a share that it hit back in 2020, and now it's all the way down to $1.50. It certainly helps that these call options are already in the money, and it also really helps that they have all the way out until January 2026, because the big money is, giving themselves a fair amount of time. I like how even with a risky trade like this one, we have like a decent amount of premium into the trade, in the sense where the big money had to come up with $3.4 million to enter this. But like I said, it's definitely high risk, high reward.
What kind of big money player is this, Mike? Like, I gotta know this one. We'll never really know, but man, that is an awfully funny trade. $3.4 million into these 1.5 plug calls, and it's coming as plug breaks through major support on the daily chart, no less. It's breaking through recent support and recent lows, and what do? Oh, yeah, hey, let's throw $3.4 million at this. Definitely interesting, and I wonder if we're gonna start to see like some shorts cover with this or something along those lines, Mike. Definitely possible, I think, whenever you're getting to these types of levels. But either way, like you said, it's kind of in that like fuel hydrogen cell business. It's a pretty interesting one, and sometimes they get some big headlines and big news that can help fuel some crazy runs. So maybe the big money here knows something that we don't. It definitely is something I'm thinking about, and they have earnings coming up here in just a few days.
Monday, March 3rd. So either way, keep a close eye on this one in the short term. But besides that, Tom, we have a very big week ahead of us. Of course, Nvidia reports earnings after the bell tomorrow, but we have a lot of very serious movement happening in general. Whether you're looking at SPY or even individual stocks like Tesla, Palantir, Hims, or many other companies. So it's a great time to be a trader. Let's remember to trade in a smart, disciplined, long-term oriented way. Have stop losses for every trade you take. Follow the trend most of the time and have a clear thesis. Know exactly why you're entering any setup rather than just, trading on a hunch and crossing your fingers and hoping for the best. You can learn a lot more about smart, sustainable trading habits for free in the StockedUp Discord and the Key Lessons channel, so definitely check that out. But if you are new to the channel, definitely consider subscribing to get our videos recommended to you more often. And we also have to give a giant shout out to today's member of the day, Rax. He had a great post today and a lot of awesome screenshots. So huge shout out to you, Rax, and keep on rolling.
Yeah, Rax, that's awesome. You've been awesome in the community as well, so keep it up. But just going through some of these, seeing some of these nice trades that you were going through today is fantastic to see. And thanks, as always, for a lot of the nice words. And in the words of Mike, it's time.
There we go. And then also, if you guys are into short-term trading, definitely check out that first link in the description down below, as Hybrid Bot crushed it today, especially with some Walmart call options that popped up by 441%. We also had some Tesla puts pop up by 277%, Celsius puts by 275%, DraftKings puts by 127%, and a handful of other setups that moved in some pretty exciting ways. You get full access to Surge, our big money plays. You can chat with Tom and myself all day long, join our weekly live events, and everything else you could possibly need for short-term trading in the trading floor, so definitely check that out. But besides that, thank you all so much for watching, and let's crush it in the market tomorrow.